Leslie's call. She stepped outside into the cool Manhattan night, heels striking pavement like a countdown. Miss Moreno? Yes. This is Martin Hale. I'm calling about your sister, Angela. A pause, and then, I'm very sorry, she passed away this afternoon. The world narrowed. Traffic dulled. Air thinned. Angela. Angie. I don't understand, Leslie said, her voice flattening the way it did in boardrooms. How? She'd been undergoing treatment for ovarian cancer. Privately. She instructed us not to notify you unless... He hesitated. Unless this happened. Leslie's throat burned. She steadied herself against the cold wind. She has 3 daughters. Triplets. 8 years old. You are named as sole guardian. Sole guardian. Leslie leaned against the brick, feeling something inside her shift. She hadn't spoken to Angela in almost a year. Too busy. Always too busy. There's more, Hale continued. Her estate is complex. We'll need to meet. Leslie ended the call, the weight of the words still pressing down on her chest. When she returned to the table, Gabe didn't ask. He knew. He didn't crowd her. He just looked at her, waiting for her to speak. My sister, she said. The words felt foreign. She's gone. She left 3 children. Gabe said, I'm terribly sorry for your loss. For once, she had no counter-argument. The girls. 2 days later, Leslie walked into family court in a charcoal suit that had once intimidated senators. But the weight of the courtroom, the stares of 3 young girls, felt like a far greater burden. 3 pairs of brown eyes stared back. Sophia sat upright, wary and assessing. Marisol's foot bounced, restless, defiant. Elena clutched a threadbare rabbit like oxygen. They looked small, too small for this room. The social worker spoke in measured tones, but Leslie barely heard her. Words like temporary placement and immediate custody echoed as abstract liabilities. Then Sophia said, Mom said you were important. Leslie blinked. Important? She said you help run the world. The words hit harder than any accusation would have. Important. Not present, not available, just important. When they arrived at the penthouse, the silence was suffocating. White marble floors, steel and glass, art purchased at auction for the price of Angie's old house. Marisol wrinkled her nose. It smells like a hospital, Elena whispered. Where's Mommy going to sleep? Leslie had navigated billion-dollar collapses without blinking. This undid her. The first crack. The first night, Elena woke screaming. Not crying, screaming. Leslie stood frozen outside the guest room door. In boardrooms, she moved first. Here, she hesitated. She had no script for grief. Finally, she entered. Elena's face was wet, small hands gripping the rabbit. I couldn't find her. Leslie's instinct was to offer logic, reassurance, structure. Instead, she sat on the bed. I can't find her either, she admitted. The words shocked them both. Elena crawled into her lap. Leslie held her stiffly at first, then tighter. Something inside her, something calcified, shifted. Wall Street smells blood by week 2, the market had noticed. An article hit before market open. Moreno Capital CEO assumes custody of sister's children. Can she maintain focus? A rival fund manager gave a thinly veiled interview suggesting leadership distraction could impact performance. Her largest investor requested an emergency call. Leslie stood in her kitchen at 6:45 a.m., tying Marisol's shoelaces while arguing over a commodities position through her headset. Liquidate 20%, she snapped. Milk spilled across marble. Sophia announced she'd punched a boy who said her mother was dead. Leslie closed her eyes. This was not volatility. This was chaos. And she was losing control. The estate. When he finally met with Martin Hale, the complications surfaced. Angela had left the house to the girls, but the house carried substantial debt. Medical debt. Treatment Angie had hidden. And there was a clause. If Leslie contested the guardianship or placed the girls in long-term care, the estate would shift into a trust administered by a third party. Angie had anticipated her. Angie hadn't trusted her. there was more. Angela had invested, quietly, in a small renewable energy startup 2 years ago. Leslie froze when Hale slid the folder across the desk. The startup's lead engineer? Gabe Alvarez. The investment had come through Leslie's own fund, in a minor acquisition she'd barely noticed. Angela had believed in that company. Leslie had nearly shut it down during a portfolio restructuring last year, had almost erased something her sister chose. The irony was surgical. That night, Gabe showed up with groceries and ice cream. The girls adored him instantly. He got on the floor to assemble a puzzle, let Marisol braid his hair with neon clips, helped Sophia with math. Elena fell asleep against his shoulder. Leslie watched from the kitchen, unsettled. "Did you know?" she asked him later on the balcony. "Know what?" "That my sister invested in your company." He blinked. "No, she believed in it. I nearly killed it." "Leslie," he said gently, "you make decisions with the information you have." "And what if that information is incomplete?" she shot back. "What if I've been calculating without understanding the human cost?" Below them, Manhattan glittered, sharp and indifferent. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "Do what?" "Be necessary to someone." Gabe stepped closer but didn't touch her. "You already are." The breaking point. The real fracture came when Elena's teacher called again. Separation anxiety, panic episodes, regression. Leslie missed a critical investor meeting to attend a school conference. By the time she arrived at the office, the market had moved without her. Her fund took a hit. Not catastrophic, but noticeable. For the first time in her career, she had chosen something over profit. And the world hadn't ended. That night, she walked into the living room to find Sophia reading a financial newspaper. "Are we poor now?" Sophia asked bluntly. Leslie knelt in front of her. "No," she said. But she realized something else. For years, she'd defined wealth as control. Now, wealth looked like 3 girls asleep down the hall. Messy, loud, irreplaceable. The shift weeks turned into months. The penthouse changed. Crayons on glass, a dollhouse beside abstract sculpture, laughter where silence once ruled. Leslie still moved markets, but she no longer mistook power for permanence. One evening, as Manhattan burned gold at sunset, the girls sprawled across the living room floor, arguing over a board game. Gabe stood beside her at the window. "You don't look like Gordon Gekko anymore," he teased softly. She watched Elena cheat and Marisol protest and Sophia mediate like a tiny executive. "Good," Leslie said. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't trying to win. She was trying to stay. And that required something far riskier than any trade she'd ever made. It required love. The end.